Welcome back to Wired for Woo. My name is Deanna,
And I'm Angelique.
and we're two professional psychic mediums and close friends who love to chat about all things life, love, woo woo, and everything in between. We know how wild this human ride can be, so we're here to share some of our experiences, insights, ponderings, some laughs along the way to hopefully help you feel connected and supported as you walk your own unique path.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy Wired for Woo, we deeply appreciate it. If you could like and subscribe to our podcast, your support helps us continue to share our stories, insights, and all the magic along the way. So we're so grateful to have you with us today on this journey.
And journey we will today.
Oh, yeah, baby.
We're
Oh,
going to one of our favorite places.
yeah.
Talk about Journey of Souls.
Journey of
If
Souls.
anyone's read that book, I don't remember the
Oh,
author's
it's such a
name,
great book
but very on brand for the topic we're about to talk
by
about
someone very
today.
cool who we don't remember the
I don't
author's name.
remember.
I
You know
have
what's
the book.
funny?
I have the book on my bookshelf.
I also have the book on my bookshelf. I can only see the last name on the spine, and it's Newton.
All
So
right.
someone Newton, but really, really interesting book. So for those who haven't read this very amazing book by Newton, um, we're talking soul contracts.
Soul contracts. I love talking soul contracts.
Yeah.
I feel
This
like we talked about so much about soul contracts before we even got on, and we're like, we need to save this for the podcast.
I know we had to shut ourselves up. But you
I
know what
know.
I'm really excited about is soul contracts is actually one of the very first topics that was introduced to me in my awakening. And like at such a pivotal time, like I'm talking about within like a month of like my major awakening moment of like, wait a second, and starting to dig into this, I was gifted a book about soul contracts, and it was like the catalyst that just catapulted everything for me.
See, I'm kind of envious there. I still felt like my higher self was like standing on the other side of the room trying to figure out whether it wanted to be in alignment with my human self.
Oh, I mean, it did not solve everything for me at all. I think
It's
it just
like,
this
oh my gosh, yes.
I feel like this concept just had so much so the I actually the book it wasn't even Journey of Souls. Journey of Souls I read like 2 years ago, so I was already, fully swimming in all of this by the time I found that one. But the one that it's called Your Soul's Plan by Robert Schwartz. Amazing
Ah,
book. Like basically he has like people he's interviewing that have like had really interesting life experiences, and he'll have like a psychic medium who channels their spiritual team, and he's like a third party writing and asking questions
that's kind of
about
badass.
their contracts and bringing through things. And like you'd have people that have experienced some really crazy stuff, and he'd be like, why would like one woman was like deaf, and he was like, why would she have chosen to be deaf in this lifetime? And
So
then
it's
like
more like past life regression mixed in with a little, it feels like a little Dolores Cannon as well in there.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would they? So they would go back to like what I want to say is,
Hypnosis. Yeah.
well, and this particular reader was able to like be in the planning, the soul planning session
Hmm.
before this person would have incarnated. And they would like go really in depth into like exactly why they set up their life and made certain choices the way they did, as well as who they made contracts with and why, and what role they were meant to play. So
Yeah.
like it just really interesting. So it totally blew the top off of like at the time I was very like victimized by my life and my circumstances, and going through like a really tough divorce and lost so much during that very short time. And I just
Yeah.
remember reading this book on soul contracts and being like, holy shit, everything makes perfect sense. Because I could, again, my mind couldn't quite wrap around it, and I still had to deal with the hard feelings of it, but I could see the thread of the soul contracts in there too, because I could hear myself in some of the stories that were in there. So
Yeah.
I'm super excited we're talking about it because it's one of
Yeah,
my
me too. And I think it would be good, like, if we can both remember, to give like a resources in our captioning of some of the books that we love regarding
yeah.
soul contracts, or even, um, believe or not believe in past life experiences. It's kind of all tie in together. But
Hmm.
for you, what was the thing that clicked the most with? Like learning about what a soul contract is, or what is a soul contract to you, like versus like, I mean, maybe we probably have the same interpretation, but like what does that mean to you, like when you think about a soul contract?
Yeah, I think a soul contract is basically any major relationship, event, interaction, or uh happening, I guess, that you experience that's meant to spark or be a catalyst for growth and expansion in some way. And I think there's different, I would also like think there's different, I'm curious if you see it this way too, but like different layers of like importance. Like I think there are some that are kind of like, oh, like we could do that. And then there are other soul contracts, like I would say like my ex-husband is one that like was an absolute set in stone when I came here I was going to have that dynamic with him. Like there
Yeah.
and like my parents, like absolute set in stone. Those were the like what I'm gonna say is it's like a blueprint. And then there are some things that are like some of those soul contracts are like the absolutely like unavoidable, they're here for you
Yeah.
because you really have contracted into those and they're usually like your bigger more foundational experiences, and then you
Yeah.
can have like little ones along the way that I think your soul can kind of create them as you walk. Well, I have so many different thoughts on this. It's
I
very like
know.
it's very meta.
It's kind of like when you think about relationships in general, what is the saying like where some people are for a season or a lifetime. What's that saying? You know what I
Some
mean?
people are in your life for a season, some are for a reason, some are
Some
for
for
a
a
lifetime.
lifetime. Yeah, I know there's like I'm really bad at like I can't
Live,
tell a joke and I can't remember quotes,
live, laugh,
but
love.
I know. Woo!
Woo!
It's something like that. But I feel like it's but I feel like I feel to your point, like I feel like and we were not talking about this and we can touch on it later about like certain people that come into your life and sometimes it's like sometimes you just do see a quote online that like that quote has some form of a soul contract in that it's a catalyst for something, a growth moment or just a or like a motivational shift in your life, which is you could think it's like, is that really a soul contract? Well, yeah, because if something is going to help you, I want to say, step into something that's going to feel really amazing or do something or shift something within you, then yeah, it's part of your soul. So,
Yeah.
um,
And I
so I
think
think
that's
you're absolutely right. I think your soul, sorry, I mean to, I'm
no,
like, you got me so excited here.
do it. Go run with it.
Because I love that you said, I love that you were talking about, some are like really set in stone. It's kind of like if you want to get this degree in college, you have to take this class. You know what I mean? And it's kind of the same way I think with soul contracts too. Like I almost feel like soul contracts are like a syllabus. They're not fated and fated. Fated, not faded like jeans.
Hmm. Yeah.
They're not really faded because we have free will.
Hmm.
So like I always look at it as like this is kind of like because a lot of people I think I don't want to say a lot of people but some people I want to say I feel like you come here with a reason, you know what I mean? And it's
Hmm.
like and it's where like those patterns keep repeating over and over and over again and
Yeah.
you're like you ain't getting it but the universe isn't like punishing you. I'm having trouble speaking. But it's more like hey, it's like this little nudge. It's like, it's okay. We're just going to keep, bring it to your attention. And sometimes I want to say soul contracts come in the form of other people for you and versus like, you have to go and do this. Oh, we're just going to approach that to you and someone else's awareness until like you kind of figure it out and you go, okay, I got that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do feel like it's like, but and you, I feel like it's like one of the things that I know this is probably, well, I would say woo, but more on the
We're past that.
metaphysical. I keep saying that because I can't help myself. On the metaphysical side of soul contracts, um, do you believe that our soul contracts are set up like with a team before we incarnate like we're sitting around a table like I always like just a vision my spiritual team all sitting there like what is it you'd like to learn in this lifetime and how do you want to do it where's your growth moments and like certain soul people will come in it's like I'll
Hmm.
I'll help you with that and I'll help you with that and you all sit around and you kind of like you create your syllabus.
Yes
Do you
and
think
no. Yeah.
yes and no?
I think
Where's
for
where's your no?
well, I think so. I think every I don't well, so it's kind of hard because I think there's from what I imagine, And again,
Yeah.
this is, I will say this to me is largely influenced by what I want to say is like your soul's plan and Journey of Souls and some of the other resources I've kind of delved into on this. But I'm just going to say this is what feels true for me because I remember reading these things and like something in me going, that feels so just like an when something just feels like truth in your body and you're
Yeah.
just like, oh yeah, that makes like you just
That
know for it
resonates.
just resonates on a really deep level and you don't know why. So for me, the way I look at it is like, I think, well, and I'm also gauging it with personal experience. So I think like when we're soul planning, I do think before we come into this lifetime, and we've also, I think we have the benefit of being mediums where we also talk to people who are in life review. So like what I want to say is people who are in life review, like it's very rare we're like talking about, well, we're not usually talking to someone who's in planning session, although I just want to say that would be a really cool thing for us to kind of try and see what we were to get
Yeah.
at some point. But I'm totally rambling all over the place. This is something I could like just go like spinning
I
off into the
know it's such a
cosmos
fun
about.
topic.
Um,
And
but
this is just what we believe too. Like I want to say this is our spiritual journey, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
on the metaphysical, I think a lot of mediums, spiritual people more I want to say outside the box a little bit or like I don't know, I want to say outside the box. Maybe that's the wrong way to phrase
well, the
it.
way I kind of always look at it is like this is the way that I frame it because it makes sense and resonates for me.
Yeah,
And
yeah, me
I'm
too.
in
Me
full
too.
awareness. I could die, get on the other side and be like, well, I got about 2%
I
of
got
that.
that
Like,
wrong.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I mean, it
And I'm
just
okay
it
with it.
and I like that you said that like it feels right to me. And I feel like anybody who's going on this journey or similar journeys need to feel that for themselves as well. So,
Yeah. And I
I would
think
say put it in your back pocket or don't put it in your back pocket. But yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But I
Continue on.
also, but I also,
Continue on, love.
oh, thank you. Grazie, grazie. So, but I also know that like my own life experience, like there's something in my, what I've experienced in some of the major soul contracts that makes sense to me too. So I think we do have those planning sessions before we come in around like, what are the major things that I really like am wanting to evolve in or expand within myself? And what I
Yeah.
want to say is we have this like connotation around like lessons. Like if we're like, oh, I have this lesson I need to learn, like we think we're in some way failing, but it's not that. It's like there's just a part of us that's wanting more understanding or more expansion. And I
Yeah.
think you can't really talk about soul contracts without talking about karma as well, which
It's so
like
true.
I think for me, the way I always view karma is like we tend to have this idea that it's punishment. And I don't see it like that. I see it as like in order to fully understand and embody the truth of an entire experience, you have to experience it from both sides of the coin. So it's like if we're the abandoned, maybe in the next lifetime, our contract is to be the abandoner so that we understand how hard it is and what the emotional consequences and experience and drivers of the abandoner are in order to have a full like circle view of an experience, because what does that do? It evolves us into more compassion, right? It evolves us into more understanding and into like what I want to say is rather than life becoming black and white, which is I think the whole spiritual experience is like I always see it as like a spectrum of color, and it's like maybe we're starting out as we can only see like red, yellow, and blue, and then like we go through a lifetime and through that experience now we can see like magenta and we're like, oh shit, that's cool. And then it's like maybe in the next one we need to, what's on the opposite end of the color wheel? Graphic designer from magenta.
From well, magenta's not really on the color
Okay.
wheel.
Okay. Red. What's the opposite? Blue?
Green,
Green.
green,
So then
green.
it's
Yeah,
like maybe the
I think so.
expansion.
Don't judge me if I got it wrong.
I wouldn't
It's the
know.
end of the day.
But
This
like,
girl's been working hard for the money
yeah.
today.
But like maybe in order to really understand red, we have to experience green.
Yeah.
So I kind of see it
No,
as
I
like
kind
we're
of get that.
expanding our our ability to perceive, relate, empathize, understand, and embody and like integrate all of the different facets of, I think, the universe, which is why I think, and again, we could go into so many different topics from here, but like where you might get like ascended masters who don't need the earth experience anymore, but are supposedly in soul contract still to help us expand because now you learn by being the teacher and the mentor.
This totally reminds me of a conversation that you and I had. Do you remember me saying like when I've been thinking about my journey or when I was going through classes to be a spiritual life coach. You have to kind of go through your whole timeline of like your highs and lows of when you were in alignment to your soul and la 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 la. And
Mm-hmm.
and so I remember going, oh my gosh, I've had so many bullies in this lifetime. And then I kept thinking, and then we were talking about past lives experience or soul contracts or things like that. And that red green scenario of like, was I a bully in my last lifetime? And do you remember me going, oh my God,
Yes.
I was an asshole? And I was cried. I cried because I can't imagine me being on the opposite side of that or being the bully. And that just devastated me to think that maybe but you're like, what did you tell me? You're like, we were all assholes. It's like something like that.
I
At
think
one,
I probably
at
said
one lifetime or another,
we've all been an asshole.
we've all
It's
been an
fine.
asshole. Which is probably true. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that again, soul growth. But like, I just remember being so devastated and thinking that I was on the other side of the coin of that. Cause it was like one of those things that's like, oh my gosh, there are all these bullies in this lifetime. And instead of looking at it as like, okay, well, maybe I needed to learn boundaries
Hmm.
clearly versus like, yeah, I was a bully in the last lifetime and crying about thinking that I was mean to somebody. It's like,
Yeah.
imagine me being mean.
Well, and
Yeah,
if you think about like again, the soul contract, like where we might be like, oh, it's not, I think there it's always like about a larger energetic learning or transmission. So
yeah.
like what I'm gonna say is like to me, bully and being the victim of a bully both are working through, I mean, I would hear maybe like the topic of dominance
Mm.
and like having to dominate for safety. And so it's like being dominated and feeling unsafe versus dominating and feeling unsafe.
There's so
And so
many
like it's literally
beautiful life
it's both
lessons
sides
with
of that
that. Yeah.
coin.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of crazy. I mean, I don't want to go off on a tangent about bullying and the both sides of the coin of that, but there was some beautiful, gorgeous personal growth that came from all of
Yeah.
those personal dynamics, where I feel like my soul contract definitely has had moments of growth or evolution of
Yeah.
getting on the other side of that and recognizing number one, that type of behavior as where before I may have brushed it on the rug or been afraid to confront it
Hmm.
versus going, that's not okay. That
Yeah.
behavior is not okay. And I'm not cool. I'm not cool with
I'm
that.
not
You
cool
know
with
what I
it.
mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like, and that's a really great thing about I want to say, the part of the syllabus, I guess you could say, of the soul contracts and our free
Hmm.
will and how we are, because there's times where it's like we do keep repeating those cycles. I mean, I think about all the years that those scenarios would happen, and they just kept happening and happening and happening. And I'm like, why am I just to keep attracting these type of people into my life? Well, because you haven't learned the lesson, aka soul contract.
Soul
Hello,
contract.
you're here for this. You're here to like step into your power. And I
Yeah.
think that's the most beautiful thing about having that purpose or that meaning of being here, right? Or
Oh,
to
I
some
think
degree.
so. Yeah, and I think a lot of the soul contracts I think to like I just feel like it's important to talk about like the ones that for me I think are like pre-planned.
Yeah.
Like I think like definitely I think parents, I think major, like I think my ex-husband was definitely one that I knew before coming
Yeah.
in.
Romantic relationships.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least major ones. I think so.
Yeah.
I think if you have ones that are just encounters or just like situationships, if they're not, I think like the depth of growth you get from something, if it's a super impactful, like kind of like totally turns your world around a little bit or drastically shifts or transforms you, whether through a positive or challenging experience, those ones I think are generally pre-planned because they are major catalysts for what you know you wanted to work on.
Yeah.
And I also think that from the other side, we understand the infinite potentials that free will and free choice um,
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
here. So like I think it's also like, you know, every way that like every way that I interacted with those soul contracts or with what I was going through in the moment might have spurred other contracts into what I want to say is like maybe it's kind of like, okay, she got that one. We didn't need to bring that thing in. Or, okay, she didn't get it on that last one. We need to bring in another a soul contract of some kind. And I think they can be really big things and really small things. Like, what I want to say is like maybe there's based on choices we make, maybe there's a certain spiritual teacher that like is a better fit, like that we catch a YouTube video of or something like that at the right time that really sparks change in us. But maybe based on our choices, like we would have been given like a different spiritual teacher if we were on a different fork on that path. Do
Yeah,
you know
and
what I mean?
and I love that because that's also, I want to say, a way to express that you don't have to actually physically have a face-to-face relationship with someone for someone to have a soul contract with you, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it is
And
cool.
we were talking about that earlier about, the effects of politicians, celebrities, influencers, our favorite motivational speakers. Do they have soul contracts with us? When we are inspired or they're catalysts for something like we were kind of briefly touching on before. And
Hmm.
I think that's such a beautiful notion, and that's where I think those type of influences in our lives, and we were talking about that as they're almost a soul contract on a collective, because their soul was meant to share with, not just one soul but multiple souls.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a lot with influencers, with motivational speakers. They're meant to speak to the masses. Like that was part of their soul contract,
Hmm.
was to influence on the collective, which is beautiful.
Which is such a important thing to kind of look at
If
too,
it's a
because
positive, if it's a positive way. I want to
well,
say, no, no,
even if
I
it's
take that
negative.
back. I take it back. I take it back, because even the ones that like, I want to say, throw the negative, or, are, I feel like that triggers us too. Those trigger also, like the bully. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It triggers the parts of ourselves that we have to address within ourselves to go, okay, what sits with this? Where do I need to grow here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and one of my favorite things to kind of keep in mind about soul contracts is I don't believe that there's a single soul contract in action that does not benefit both sides of it. So
That's
like
so true.
I think so when I think of like I think my ex-husband is probably the one that's coming up for me the most, just because what I want to say is I'm just going to tell the story a little bit because I think this is one of your key markers that you have. And I remember so I met him in high school. Yes, we got married at 19, don't judge me.
Not
But I
judging you,
remember
girl.
no, but I would not blame them. But he walked into the classroom on the first day of my senior year, and I just like instantly, and I was never like a goo goo gaga girl, like over men or over guys or whatever. And he walked in, and I just felt like I knew him. I'd never seen him before in my life. I couldn't stop staring at him. But what's funny is the thing that really stood out to me was his shoes. And they were nothing super crazy. They were just these gray, they were Converse, but they weren't even your normal Converse. They were like your like tennis shoe Converse with like a yellow towel material where the emblem for Converse is on the side. And I still to this day can picture these shoes clear as day. And when I was later reading, I want to say it was Journey of Souls. Like this is 20 years after I'd met
That's a
him.
sign that you have a soul contract with
That
somebody.
well,
If
that
you're
they
very
tell you.
drawn, it's intense,
Well, you're
right?
very drawn. It's
Yeah.
intense that because it's almost like this
Mm-hmm.
unavoidable, like you will interact with this person.
Yeah.
But they also had said something like, you'll know me you'll see my gold necklace glint in the sun. You'll see, like, they give you markers of
It
what they'll
was
be
his
wearing.
sneakers.
It was
I
his
love it.
fucking
I
sneakers,
love that it
which
was
I
his
think is so
sneakers.
funny. But even he was like, I remember that first day, like you were just freaking me out because you wouldn't stop staring at me. And he was like, you're just so obsessed with me. And I was like, no, I'm telling you, there was something in me that felt like I knew you. Like, and so there was definitely a major soul contract there. And what I can say is, while both of us were deeply challenged by that dynamic, like
Mm,
it was a pact we made. I think all soul contracts are also born in love, even if they are very challenging in nature. Like I think some of our hardest relationships on a soul level are made, like one of the things I loved in Your Soul's Plan is he talks about how like some souls are like, and I think this is probably the case with like I have very difficult relationships with my dad and my
yeah.
stepmom. I think, and it's funny because I remember you brought this through in a reading one time where it's like he contracted to play a very specific role with me and he played it
Yeah.
to a T. And while my human experience of it was not one that felt loving, what I want to say is he was willing to be the bad guy in my experience. And that, what I want to say is this is where I think we have to kind of keep a middle ground of like, we're not excusing behavior that's not okay.
No, 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 no.
Right? I'm not saying that what's transpired is something I'm okay with. And I believe on a soul level, which what I want to say is we are not usually connected to like
Yeah.
in our human experience. That contract was made out of so much love because the amount of learning and growth and self-love and confidence and like safety I've learned to create through myself from the absence of it in that relationship is what creates who I am now. Like I could
Which
not, I
is
don't think I would have been half
beautiful.
the human being that I love that I am now without my dad playing that very severe role so well. And I remember you saying one time in a reading that we'd get on the other side and he'd be like, I did good, right?
I,
And I'm
I
like,
know.
and I
I know
love
because
that.
his soul, it was so it's so crazy that I remember that because as mediums we normally don't remember reads, but that one was so impactful,
Yeah.
and I loved the flip side of the coin with your dad.
Yeah.
Because it was really like there was so much love there for you and
Hmm.
like really wanting to help you and just be a part of your soul's growth.
Hmm.
Even though like you saw none of that in this lifetime.
Even though it's like
You
that's
know what
not
I
the
mean?
experience here, there's a part of me like,
Yeah.
and the thing is like, I know, you know what I mean? Like like I know my dad loves me. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I know
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
like in this lifetime, we're just not very good at it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But again, it's like, was that meant to be? Because what I want to say is without that growing up experience, I might not have, what I want to say is I feel like the contract with him and the contract with my ex-husband are actually quite similar in what
Yeah.
I needed to work out, right?
Yeah.
And both, I think you choose your parents. I think you choose some major life events. Like, I think we kind of almost kind of like go, what I want to say is it's very like Three of Pentacles energy to me, but oh, like you, in order for you to grow in the next level of yours, you're going to be with this person, you're going to get divorced and you're going to have this problem and they're going to have this problem. That's perfect. I'm trying to learn this lesson and both of those things, those experiences will actually really help me crack that part open and learn how to evolve from it. So I'm actually picking this really fucked up childhood scenario
Yeah.
because without it, I would not be able to expand in the way that I'm looking to. So I think we actually go like, I think we also link up into each other's contracts and be like, hey, are you willing to like add me into that contract because it'll also help you with this thing. You'll help me with this thing. And like you guys are already planning to do that. So how do you feel about just kind of how do you feel about making it a threesome? Like, you
Oh my
know?
gosh, girl, this just totally makes me think of like, and I don't know whether we had this conversation or not, but like, I could just imagine like, a bunch of souls sitting at a conference table going over like, here's your checklist of all the things you want to learn in this lifetime. And it's like, yeah, I'd like to learn, compassion and boundaries and self-worth and self-love. And they're like, and you're going down this list of 50 things. And I'm like, you sure you want to do that? Like, do you have any idea? Like, what that's going to entail because it's kind of like I'm trying to think of that movie about with where he does Noah's Ark. I'm trying to remember the comedian,
Steve
but he
Carell?
yeah, the Steve Carell, where he does the Noah's Ark thing or whatever, and he's like, God doesn't give you like if he wants to learn patience, he gives you lessons to learn patience. He doesn't make it easy for you. You know what I mean? I have
Hmm.
to go the long way around. And again, I can't tell joke and I can't remember things exactly. But thank you for the fill in the blanks for me.
I just
But
watched a
but
Steve
that's but
Carell
that's so
movie today.
but it's so true though. So that's like I often wonder if they're like, you sure you want to take on that much? You know what I mean? Because with all of those growth lessons comes like that flip side of it, the red and the green. Like if you want to learn patience, you're going to be getting a lot of things thrown at you that are going to require patience.
Yes.
So I totally get what you're
Which is
saying.
where we might go, like, I really want to learn patience. So maybe I partner up with somebody and make a soul contract to like be in a challenging relationship with somebody who is like, what I want to say, maybe they're learning about like neuroticism. Like, or
Yeah.
maybe they're learning about control, or maybe right. So we might partner up with somebody that's actually going to make, like, what I want to say is cause a lot of rub around all
Yeah.
of the things that challenge patience. Which is why, like,
Yeah.
I think when we talk about like relationships, like healthy relationships should challenge you and make you uncomfortable to some degree because they're a
I
soul
know.
contract for growth. And so, but I think like this is where what I want to say is the definitely, I mean, boundaries are definitely something we can do. But I think that's
And
also where
not
we kind of,
everybody, sorry, continue. I didn't mean to
no,
cut you off. Go ahead,
no, go
go ahead.
ahead.
I was going to say, sorry, I'm so excited.
I
Um,
love it.
so I want to say too, the interesting thing is like, do you think that everyone fulfills their soul contract?
No, I
I
do
know, me
not.
neither.
Well,
Me
you know
neither.
what?
But I
Yes
think
and
that's
no.
a great,
Yes and no.
I think that's a great thing to talk about. And again, this is just what feels comfortable for us in our belief system. But I mean, things that I want to say when I've done readings for people too, it's like sometimes I feel like I'm not sure if they're going to learn that in this lifetime. You know what I mean? Or they're going to go
Mhm.
through that healing process, or I want to say that level of awareness
Yeah.
for themselves because they're so stuck in their head or they're unable to, and sometimes it's beyond what they can control.
Yeah.
And that there's another aspect of what they're and the thing is too is we don't know what their soul contract is. You know, we could say, "Oh, I really wish they had self-awareness in this area," and that's your stuff projecting sometimes on them.
Yeah.
And
That might
they're
not be their
and
contract at
that
all.
may not be their contract. And it's like,
No.
and I think sometimes when you are able to step in that level of awareness for yourself and going, I really wish that they had that, or they're not going to be able to be open to this, or yes, there are choices and there are consequences, 100%. But you don't know what their soul contract could have been for you. And that's where too, you and I were talking about, like, what if people's soul contracts, like, what if you're there for somebody else's soul contract and you're like, why am I in this person's life? I know we've talked about this in the dating world. It's like, I never would have gone on a date with this person, or I never would have interacted with this person. I don't know why I interacted with this person because like my normal self, like, saw all the red flags. Like I saw it, but like, why was I so like engaged with this person when I knew
Hmm.
that it was like a thousand no's. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, because it wasn't about me, it was about them needing something for their soul contract. Do you think that that's a possibility?
I don't believe any soul contract is ever one-sided. I think it
Oh,
was
I
you were drawn
know.
to them because you had a role to play for them and there's something there for you to, they were playing a role for you as well.
I
I
know.
don't think it's
It's
ever
kind of,
one-sided because I think the universe by nature is
it's like we're one big theatrical play.
reciprocitous. Is that a word? Reciprocitous?
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't
you're talking.
know.
I don't
I'm
know.
trying to get fancy and I don't know what I'm talking about. But as my aunt would say, I'm just an Italian hillbilly and I don't know what I'm talking about. But
It truly
um
is like we're just in one big play. You know what I mean? It's like
yes.
everybody has a role to play. Everyone comes in, like sometimes there's directors, like sometimes there's extras, you know?
Yeah, you have your main
Like I
characters, you
know,
have
it's
your
kind of
side
crazy.
characters, you have your background characters, but the thing is they're all part of it. And so I don't think anything's ever one-sided where it's like I did this for them and I didn't get anything from it. Like there is always a soul contract that I don't think we ever create a soul contract that is not mutually beneficial, even if on the human side of things, it looks like one person's victimized, or it looks like one person got everything from it, or it looks like one person was in service. Like what I would say is, like as a
Yeah.
reader, every we give a reading, get a reading. So it's like we're doing something, we're getting money from somebody, but we're also giving them something helpful and we're learning and expanding ourselves through the witness of another person's experience too. So it's like nothing's, and I don't think any exchange is ever truly one-sided. But I
I
also
don't know. I don't know because I keep thinking, and you know where I'm going to go.
go there.
So there, and people, I'm just going to share this. Like there was, and I don't even really want to say that I was dating. I was dating, kind of dating. Hello, puppy. Um, kind of dating someone like a long time ago. And I did not understand, like, I went looking back, like, why I felt like almost like I was clouded in judgment, which
Mm-hmm.
wasn't my normal behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But there were certain things that occurred during that dynamic with them where I ended up, I want to say towards the end, I gave them a reading.
Mm-hmm.
They were about to go into surgery. Remember that
Mm-hmm.
one?
Yeah.
They were about to go into surgery, and it was like a really big surgery. And I had like an uncle come through, and they kept talking about this clock, and they're like, this doesn't resonate. I'm like, I don't know. They keep telling that they're going to be with you during the surgery, and they keep talking about this clock not working. And I'm like, and I just really trust this message. It's just really, really strong coming through. And I'm like, just hold on to it or whatever. And then they FaceTimed me like literally like an hour after the surgery and said, "Oh my gosh, my uncle was with me and we were walking through these fields together." And, and as they were saying, they spanned around and there was a clock on the wall that wasn't working. And his uncle kept saying, "You'll know it's me." That's what it was. "You'll know it's me by the clock not working." And it was in ICU, which those clocks have to work because of,
Yeah.
that part of the hospital or whatever. I mean, you would think that, but it was just really interesting that he spanned around and said, "Wow, the clock isn't working." And I feel like, and this is just my
Mm-hmm.
take, I feel like I was there to open something or crack open something in his experience of
Mm-hmm.
having this. He would have never have had that experience or understood it if him and I did not connect.
Yeah. N-
And then right after that, that contract was over,
Yeah.
like shortly after.
Yeah. And I would argue, so
So, but I don't feel like, well,
you
I
don't feel
want
like
to
you
say
learned anything about yourself through that experience?
it was a beautiful experience of other than,
I was
no, it
going to
was
say it was
awful.
awful.
It
And
was
you learned so
awful.
much about what you want, what you don't want, about, I know, like pitfalls, about
Yeah. Well,
self-value, and
the only
like,
reason why that happens, and we could talk about soul contracts, can we end a soul contract? And that's where like I was going through a string of like really bad dates and
yeah.
just dynamics with people. And I literally had I went on a hike one morning, and I this was like right after I found out that like he was actually seeing somebody else. It was like awful, everybody. And so so drama filled. So yeah, I know I should probably disclose all this stuff. I'm like so shy. Am
Well,
I? Am
no,
I?
no.
But so anyway, and I shared this with you that on the way back from this hike after learning all of this awful, I remember kind of having a conversation with God in my car saying, we're done with this, like this type of behavior, this type of dynamic. Like I can't do it anymore. Like I just can't. We need to shift. Like we need to shift the energy here in how I approach relationships and how I move forward in my dynamic. And from that point on, it did shift. And that's where I feel like
Hmm.
my soul contract shifted. And not to say that it was deleted, but the approach and the self awareness and how I approach, I mean, I want to say how I went into my dating life. I want to
Changed.
say it totally shifted, and how I looked at
Yeah.
how I went into it. So yeah, I should.
So that's where I would
I can't
argue
say.
that the soul
Yeah, I
contract
know,
was
I
not
know,
one
I
way
know,
because
I
that's a
know.
pretty major shift. And I think
It was a pretty
some,
major shift. So I cannot say then. I cannot say that that was a one-sided. Damn it.
no,
There
sorry.
was two sides of the coin there. But I felt like at the time, I remember thinking like, I'm not in this, because I remember at that time, I was like, oh, this wasn't for me. This was his soul contract to have this experience, this beautiful experience, which yeah, it was.
Hmm.
Um, but
Well,
but the
and
other part
your
for
soul
me,
contract came towards the end of that. In the ending
yeah,
of it is where your soul's growth was fulfilled.
yeah, that was true, because I was like, I'm not gonna do it anymore, God. I was crying in
Yeah.
my car. I was such a girl.
No, you're human. But so I
Sorry, I
again,
shouldn't say that. I was such a
it's
girl.
fine.
It was like such a girl
I
cry.
love being a girl and I cry often.
It
Um,
was like one of those things, I guess, because sometimes I always feel like, like, I don't know. I don't know. We're I'm just, that's that sensitivity of being a woman,
yeah.
But it was such a, I want to say, I always hear the phrase like, it's such a girl cry. It was such a girl cry.
Aw.
It was a big time girl cry.
Yeah, which is a big
All right.
shift.
All right. All
I
right.
feel like
We can move on from
no,
that
no,
one.
no. I feel like we have to pivot a little bit back just a minute because I've had this like thought in my head since it got brought up, and I feel like
Bring it
I have
on.
to say it. So you asked if I thought that soul contracts were always fulfilled. And like I feel so strong like what I said no, but then I kind of like immediately was like, wait a minute, it's actually like a yes and a no. So I just felt like I wanted to state that like the first thing that came up for me was like to measure the success of something as only if it's completed in its fullness is a very human metric of success.
That's so true.
And like, so it's like our soul contract. What I want to say is, even the people that we might go like, wow, they're really stuck and they're probably not going to learn that lesson this lifetime. Like the fact that they are experiencing any of it at all is growth. Even if they will not, like, they're not progressing in their or changing their dynamic with it, they are in the experience. Sorry if you hear my dog's toy squeaking in the background.
Yeah, I
Um,
do. It's awesome.
Duck.
I agree with you because I think about my marriage and my divorce. And
Hmm.
I always felt that him and I have had more than one lifetime together.
Hmm.
And I feel like this was the lifetime that we fulfilled our contract.
Hmm.
So,
But
which
even
is
in
like
that,
really
like,
interesting. So, like, I would say we didn't fulfill a contract, or maybe it was like, so that's like really an interesting topic to talk about with people. Like,
but you
not
can't really
every
say
soul
that you didn't
contract.
before. Because like what I want to say is, what if the metric of success of a soul contract is not this like measured destination point? Because I feel like in spirit's eyes, like that would just not be the way that we would view it. Like I feel like we would be more like you're in the experience of it, therefore you are fulfilling your contract because there's no like how often does spirit say like we're not outcome minded? Like they're not real like I feel like on a spiritual
No,
level, it's
I
kind
know
of
we're more on
like
the evolution and the
and
growth,
and
but
like
what
my
if you're not
dad's
growing? Like you have like, what if this thing is like,
you can't
y-
be living a human experience and not be growing in some way. Like, even if you're like digging your heels in and you're like, I'm not going to look at that, you're still having to, like, on a soul level, you are still experiencing the energy of it. So, how could you not be being affected or change? Because, and even if you don't work with it in now, like you go into non-physical and you're in like a life review. So you eventually do learn from it and you're still taking everything you got in this lifetime, even if you repeat it in the next, like you're still taking it over. And I would also argue like, so like my dad's a great example, right? Our soul contract is not one that I feel like it doesn't involve repair, right? Like not in this lifetime at least, right? His job would be incredibly challenging for me. So while it's like, do I think he is necessarily like, do I know for a fact that he's growing and evolving from the experience we had together? He might not be doing anything with it. And did he not fulfill his soul contract? I can't say that he didn't. Maybe his soul contract had
yeah,
nothing to do with him evolving in that way. Like, you know how sometimes we have to like, you know what it kind of reminds me of is like, you know, when we say like, okay, I just need to sit in the pity party for a minute.
yeah.
Like, what if there are lifetimes that the whole soul contract purpose is just to understand what an energy feels like rather than to change it or shift it?
I
So
don't know about that.
I kind of do.
I see your point there. I totally see your point there, but I also feel like it's like without getting too defined of like our soul, because we were talking about that and not wanting to like dive too deep because we felt like we could just spiral on it. But I
Uh-huh.
think about like when we're in alignment to our soul, like things, it's like there's ease and grace and it feels really good and it feels positive. But when we're not in alignment, when we're in the, I want to say we're in the head or in our heads, or what I call the translator or the backseat driver, which is the mind, then we're not in alignment as much to our soul. When we're letting self-doubt, we're letting all those other things get in the way. So I feel like it's like, is that someone who's not, which is a great, like, getting people to comment in the comments. are you in alignment to your soul contract if you are not, in sync to the things that feel really amazing for you
I
versus being in the what you're saying is like being in the pity party mode or the self-doubt or the self-worth or like I'm not, like I'm not going to do this because I'm afraid or fear mindset or things like that. Like
yeah.
that would not be in alignment to one's what I would say your pure authentic gorgeous soul self that everybody is.
So I
You
would
know what I
say
mean?
I see where you're coming from, but I would say like almost every time I think I've not every time, but like when I would say like the entirety of the 10 years of a very challenging marriage were absolutely part of a soul contract and very little of it felt really good.
No,
And I was
but you're on the other,
absolutely in
but you're on the other side of that
now,
though.
but to
Yeah,
say that
yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't like what I want to say is even after like we had divorced and we had ended the soul contract, we weren't together anymore and we knew we were moving on. It didn't feel good to be ending
Well,
something even
no,
though
it's
I
not
knew I
supposed
had to
to.
close it out. So I don't know that I would ever relate like are you in soul contract if you're not doing something that feels good for you? Because I think the soul contract itself is the agreement to infuse certain dynamics that are challenging,
Well,
either challenging or healing. You
and
can have good contracts too.
no, I agree. I do agree with you. And I want to say it's so hard because I want to see both sides of the coin here because you did come out on the other side and you do have that self-awareness. So like that lesson you're able to acknowledge and grow from.
Yes.
People who do not come out of that, which I think sometimes, you know, like if someone passes on before they have an opportunity to, I want to say right the wrongs. I hate saying that, but like there's I mean we just don't know, we don't know until your point till we cross over and like maybe their purpose was again for someone else's self growth to help them to get to another level or whatever. I'm not saying that's the case with every soul, most certainly not, when you think about tragic losses and things like that, but like it is a lot of things to ponder. What are you
I'm
laughing
sorry.
at?
You're talking
Is
about
it
tragic losses, and I can't stop laughing because my dog has chosen right now to be pure chaos.
which I
He's like
kind of
always a
love.
couch potato, but
Yeah.
he's literally under the table, like squirming and knocking everything and squeaking his toy like a monster.
Oh
I'm
my
so sorry.
gosh. He's
And
trying
I'm
to make it
trying,
much lighter
he
probably
is
than we're
probably.
making it. But I think there's so much to I mean it's one of those things where you're definitely Alice in Wonderland going down the rabbit hole of thinking about and those people who just question the universe, and thinking about soul contracts because there's so many angles that you could converse on
Yeah.
of like, you know, um just souls times here and it's not coming from a place of judgment of like this person had this behavior and this person had that behavior because you don't know their soul contract, you don't know what they signed up for in this lifetime.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when we were briefly talking before the call about like what our soul is, and when I think about our soul, and yeah, you have to go through the mud. I
Hmm.
mean, for any type of personal growth, I think not all of it's easy. Sometimes it's a little easier than other times, but I want to say the really big growth moments come from the really hard lessons. Sometimes, most of the times.
I would say there's equally heal like
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
think we can
say,
have contracts on the equally healing part of things where it's like you have a really like I think obviously you and I have a soul contract, right? The way we met, the way we became
yeah.
friends, the instant click. We went to this
No,
networking meeting that
yeah.
neither one of us ever went back to again after we met each other and it was just like
Not
peas
that
in a
we don't love
pod.
you all.
No, we love you guys. It was a great group, but
Yeah,
I feel like the purpose was to arrange
yeah,
our meeting because the way it all worked out was just too crazy.
yeah.
So like
No, I know. I agree with you
and our
100%.
friendship has both offered growth, but in a really healing, loving place. And our friendship has healed parts of us too. So
That's very
I
true.
think there's like those soul contracts too. But I feel like it's like if meeting you was the soul contract, right? And like we don't have a metric for like, wow, like we made Can you hear my dog digging now?
Yes, I
Oh,
actually saw his
Duck!
shadow behind you, which was like really funny.
Just going crazy.
I love
He's
it. I love
he's
it.
losing his mind.
You're
Um,
and you're and it's so funny because I just literally saw, I don't think it went past the screen, but there was like a little orb that just like flew through my room. Um, but you're right, because there are really beautiful soul contracts. There are ones that are meant to uplift, inspire, they're not all gloom and doom, like,
mhm.
I got to beat you down until you to see the light.
Well, and
You
sometimes they're a
need to
mix
sit
of
in the
both.
darkness before the light turns on. I mean, the light's always on, and sometimes we just takes us a little
Yeah.
longer to find the switch. But
Well,
but
and
but
sometimes it's
there
a mix of
are
both.
beautiful, beautiful contracts,
Like,
like
go ahead,
I
sorry.
stand corrected. I stand corrected. It's so funny because it's like so easy to think about, the painful side of things versus going, okay,
Yeah.
wait, there's a lot of joy in here too. And, you know, and, yeah, so I just kind of lost my train of
Well,
thought there, but,
well, that growth's just harder earned, I think, is why it kind of stands out more.
yeah,
But like, I mean, even if I look at like where I work right now, it's been equal parts like really beautiful healing soul contract and really challenging growth contract all at the same
yeah,
time. But like I have no doubt like the way that everything handed off to me being where I work now, like I was absolutely meant to be there. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And I'm
yeah,
still in contract, so I think I think it's a mixed bag, but it's like I think when you were saying like the contract, it's like growth coming from the mud. I just wouldn't say that like if
yeah, I
if
take that
someone
back,
if
people.
someone gets in,
I
well,
take
no, no,
that
no.
back.
I want
No,
to
I
make
take
my
that
point
back
around it.
because
I
joy is equal. I think light and dark.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
No, no, no. I'm not even going down that road. I'm just
Okay.
saying like if I think if somebody gets in the mud at all, whether they get to the other side of it, how could they not still be in their soul contract? Do you know what I mean? Like it's like I feel like from Spirit's Mind, it's like there's
Yeah,
still
but
an
isn't the
accomplishment.
purpose of the isn't the purpose of, well, that's it's so tricky because, if you look at your soul contract as a syllabus and you look at the fact that we have free will as humans,
Hmm.
hello,
He's absolutely
Ducky.
nuts right now.
And then there really is, you're right. I mean, there really isn't, there's no,
Well, and I'm still
you
growing
can't
from
really
my
say that
relationship
there's
with my
there's
ex.
wrong turns, but there is like, it's kind of like, okay, you're just gonna have to take this class over, or you're gonna have to keep trying it until you get it right. And there's no, like, I don't feel like that's not the universe or God, or whatever belief system you believe in is
Hmm.
punishing you, going, you didn't fix this. But I feel like it's just going to keep showing up in different forms.
Yeah.
It's almost like the same pattern showing up in different people. You know what I mean? Until like it's like you acknowledge it. I kind of love the way the universe works that way.
Yeah.
And I know I've seen it in both on my career front and on my relationships, whether it's friendships, business relationships, or romantic partners. You do see a lot of the patterns and you're like, okay. And then it's like, okay, I've been shown this 50 times, and then 51, I got it,
Right.
or you don't. But to your point, you are still in that. I kind of love what you're saying. You're kind of like, you're still taking the class and you haven't
Hmm.
graduated yet.
Yeah.
So you're
Eh,
still in the contract. So
yes.
the contract is not complete. It's almost like no one's handing you a diploma,
Right.
but it's like a kind of like a horrible way to say it, because I mean, I don't know. It is, because it's a beautiful way to go, okay, like I've learned this. It feels really good when you're on the other side of a really tough lesson, or a lesson that's, even if it's on the side of joy, you
Yeah.
coming from a place of, I think both sides, you come from a place of gratitude, whether it's a positive experience that you've learned, or it's a messy, muddy experience. I feel like when you are able to be on the other side of that, it just feels really delicious.
Yeah.
But maybe you don't. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great, I want
I
to say, I
think
feel like if we were in a group setting, we would be talking till midnight
absolutely.
because everybody would have input on that one. I think that's a
Yeah.
really good nugget to mull over. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Very
think
Alice.
Very
Yeah.
Alice for
Mhm.
sure. And I think it's just like, again, I just keep going to come back to like, I've never heard Spirit say something that seems overly outcome. Like, this is the outcome that deems success. And until you get here, you're not doing it right. And so I
Yeah.
think there's a part of me that goes like, even if someone like, it's like if you're saying like, we're getting the diploma, like some of us might be like, all right, I'm going through all the grades and I might have to repeat third grade 6 times, but like, we're gonna get there, right? And we're gonna graduate. But
Yeah.
someone who decides to just stay in kindergarten, like they might be repeating shapes over
Yeah,
and
but do
over
you
and
think like our
over.
spirit guides and angels are like rolling their eyes on the other side,
No,
like girl, like
no, I
I love you and
don't.
all, I love you and all, but like how many times we got to go through this? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm just saying that
No,
because I know
no,
that's
I
not true.
know. No,
I
I
know
know. But
that's true.
like, I
I'm
think,
adding a little bit of humor in there, but I really do feel like it's one of those things where, and I don't ever feel like our spiritual team will ever give up on us. They love us so much, but I feel like it's like they are that constant whisper in our ear, that little nudge of like,
mhm.
do you really want to do that? You sure you want to go there? Like I feel like that is always there, and then we make the choice of whether or not we want to take
Yeah.
that make I want to say make the decision that's in alignment to our soul versus what's in our head or our self-doubt, or you know what I mean,
Yes, and I can
or
think
ego.
of most of my life up until what I would refer to as my spiritual awakening, where
Oh, me
I did
too.
not have the ability to think like that. So and I don't think your guides are any less present with you or like, come on, like figure it the fuck out already. Like, I don't
No,
think
I
no,
was,
I know.
I'm totally
I do
joking
know.
there. I
I
was
do
just kind of
know.
my little bit of a joke,
No, I know you're playing,
because
but like I also think
yeah.
like, but I because I think that I literally was just talking to one of my guides couple days ago and I was like trying to like open up and stay open to something and like I literally felt my energy close off to it again and I went like I'm sorry because she was like oh okay we're closed again and so she was just kind of like that's okay and I was like I'm sorry I was like you know how this is and she goes I get it so like I think there's like that's why I'm like if there's somebody who like is just sitting in their same pattern I don't think they're not in their soul contract or that they're not still learning something that pertains to their soul
Oh,
contract, even if they're not breaking the pattern. Because it's like
yeah.
if you want to sit and repeat kindergarten, like you're going to know your shapes really, really, really well. And you'll be able to apply
It's
that
so
when
true.
in your next life if you decide that you'd like to
Yeah.
progress, right? Or you might be like, "Oh, like I got really stuck in that one. Maybe we'll try a different catalyst to try and like help me like now use what I learned in this past life by retaking shapes for 5 fucking years." You know what I mean? Like maybe so I don't, what I want to say is I don't think spirit has like, I don't think that success is even a word that spirit really, I think they frame it in ways because they know that what I want to say is we have like, again, that like accomplishment metrics. Like we
Well,
have like
yeah,
the
because think about
diploma is
all the
the
times
accomplishment.
we've had readings or we've talked to one another. It's like you really should celebrate that because you've created healthy boundaries, or you stepped into your power, or you chose your own well-being over being
Yeah.
in a relationship with someone that's not good for you. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's like when things like that come through from spirit, it's like they love to acknowledge your growth.
Yes, but
You
I
know what I
don't
mean?
think that means they're celebrating us
No,
any
no, no, no,
less when we're
no,
just
no, no,
showing up
no.
and being a piece of shit.
And in no
Do you know
way am
what I
I
mean?
saying no, in
Like,
no way am I saying that, I think everybody has their own divine timing with their personal growth,
hmm
without a doubt. And whether that's one lifetime or five,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's your path. That's your journey. And that's in no place coming from judgment. And I agree with you now that we're talking about like that makes so much sense of like you are in your soul contract. There's no, it's just a matter of, but I'd always love like when I'm doing a reading with someone or something and spirit will show me the hamster wheel. I'm like, you are on the hamster wheel. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's really, again, that's that little spirit nudge from just I want to say but bringing it to surface for them
Yeah.
and like wanting to help speed up the process if they can. But again, you have the choice, you have free will. This is all your soul contract again is a syllabus, it's not fate.
Yes.
So So I think what you're saying is very, very valid. For me, I just, it's like so easy to get caught up. It's like, if you don't learn something, like, are you in soul contract? Are you fulfilling your soul contract? Well, yeah, it may take you a few lifetimes, but you are still in soul contract
Yeah.
because how many times have we done, like, if, like, I do Akashic records
Hmm.
sessions, like, when you're talking about past lives, it's like, okay, you brought this lesson in with you from the last lifetime because you carried it over,
Yeah.
and it's true, but you're right, you're still in contract.
Well, and there's
It's a
learning.
really good way to phrase it, and it's kind of nice talking about that because I didn't
Yeah.
really look at it that way. It's
Well,
kind of cool.
I think experiencing an energy in itself is by default a form of expansion. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like they might not be consciously learning something that's tangible, but I think on a soul level, anytime we're experiencing an energy or a dynamic, like we are learning, right? So it's like we may not graduate high school, but like you fucking know what a circle is. Like you figured out circles. So like that's, and I think on a
You
spirit's
figure
level,
out
like,
circle.
and I think on spirit's level, like that's
It's
not
so
a
horrible. I
waste.
don't mean to laugh at that, but
No,
it's
it's
so,
funny. It's a funny
but
analogy,
it's
but like
so
it's not, but I
true.
think I think again, it's our human metrics that say that would be a waste or that that's not showing up or that that's not an accomplishment when it comes to like when I look at some of my worst mistakes where I'm like, God, I stayed so long in that dynamic. I could have just left the first time around. Like I also see where there is so much depth and value from my from the length of my participation in a soul contract
And it's so
that
hard
was
sometimes
not
to see
necessarily in my
that.
benefit at the time. But it was, but there's so much more because I made all the missteps I made and I stayed stuck and I didn't change the pattern. So like that's where
Yeah.
I'm like I don't, and again it's all so ambiguous and like complex and interlocked. I think it's so hard to say like so when you're like do you ever complete them? I'm like yes and no, because it's like we
I
also know
know.
you'll learn self-worth and then something will come in at another level and you have to kind of learn it again because you're kind of
Or
like
you don't. Or you
or
don't.
well, and in the same lifetime, you'll be like,
Yeah.
you'll like get to a next level of like, okay, this is my new boundary. And what's the first thing that happens? There's some contract or something that walks in that helps you test, reaffirm, or realize where we can still grow there. So like it's always this evolution. It's never like a done stamped deal. So
Yeah, and I
I don't
think the
know.
beauty in it, and I want to say is, like, if anyone's listening and they're finding themselves in those repeat patterns or something, and it's like, I don't want to draw circles anymore. It's like, I think that's such a beautiful, like, first step.
Yeah.
It's like, like, it's like, why is this always happening to me? Like, why is this, blah, 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 like, we can get in our head and things just like, this pattern keeps happening over and over. I
Hmm.
think there's a really beautiful, cracked open moment when you say those words, like, why is this always happening? And if you allow yourself, I want to say that moment to go, maybe I need to sit with why it's happening. Well, always the common denominator is ourselves,
Hmm.
looking inward and then going from there and looking out and going, okay, maybe I need to sit with this. And then, you know what? The more you do that, the more you're going to be able to fill that soul contract. And it's not to say that another layer is going to peel back after that, because just guess what? They always keep coming.
We're an
But
endless onion.
we're on an endless idea. But it's beautiful though. But if it doesn't happen, I want to say don't beat yourself up over it either. I mean, it's like one of those things where I don't know. I mean, it's tough because I think, to your point, like, during our marriages, both of us, like, I was in a cloud that whole time until towards the end.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing my marriage from a different set of lenses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was the beginning of my awakening. So I want to say, yeah, but I mean, I feel very blessed and fortunate, but I don't know how many lifetimes I had with my ex. I could have had like 15 lifetimes. And it's like, okay, we all done here.
Yeah.
We're ready to go, and love and respect and wish him well. But
Hmm.
like, I'm really happy that both of us now, have our own paths,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that dynamic has ended, and I'm able to kind of shift into a different type of relationship moving forward.
Yeah.
That's best for me and on my journey. So
Yeah. Which you wouldn't
Um,
have been able to do without the experience of what it wasn't,
no,
which
a lot of
I,
growth moments.
yeah, which I think when I look, it's like my relationship with my ex-husband was probably the most potent soul contract that I've had
Yeah,
in my
same.
experience. But what's beautiful is we recently reconnected, not in like a romantic way, but just as like, friends and stuff like that. And it's funny because this is where I'm like soul contracts interloop with each other because our dog passed away. And
Mm.
I had a very deep soul contract with my dog Tavish. But it was a dog that me and my ex had had together. And so when he was passing away, it actually reconnected my ex and I together. And we were able to literally, while we were burying, this dog that we both loved with all our hearts, also were able to bury and the old hatchet of like all the hurt and the wounding and have conversations I never in a million years thought we would have. And like we're actually like come full circle to where like I'm sure there's still healing for both of us to do on our experiences, but like part of the soul contract was also that there would be an opportunity. And I think part of Tav's soul contract was that he was going to create an opening for us to heal things too. So it's
And
like,
that's a beautiful segue for you can have a soul contract with an animal.
yes, absolutely. Oh my God. I think animals are
Yes.
actually almost, especially pets, I guarantee you
Mm.
they are always soul contracts. If it is a
Oh my
pet, that is
gosh.
always a soul contract because they're family members. Any family member is
I don't know about
absolutely,
my one cat though. He's kind of a grumpy old
he's a
man.
contract. You listen, not all
He's kind
contracts
of
are warm and
a
fuzzy.
he's kind of a grumpy old
There's a
man.
contract there.
I
There's a
love him to
reason
pieces, don't get me
he lives
wrong.
in your
He's
home.
my little boo.
He just clears
But
energy and does his thing
but
and walks
he's
out.
just like he's like such a cat.
I love it.
As for my
Yeah.
other cat's a love bug, but it's
Yeah.
okay. Anyway, I don't want to go off on it. I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
mean it,
No,
but
no,
yeah, I
no.
agree. But I know
We're coming to the end
we're coming
here.
to the end here. So did you want to talk more about your beautiful dog and that? Because I'm sorry, I feel if I cut you short there. I didn't mean
No,
to.
no, no, no. I
Um,
just was kind of wanting to say, like, I guess I was just wanting to illustrate that, like, I think that was a beautiful example of where soul contracts can overlap.
oh my gosh, that was
Because
powerful when
I
all
someday
of
I'll
that
tell the whole
unfolded.
story because it's
Yeah.
way more than what I just
People, it
said.
was crazy. It
It
was
was
crazy.
insane, so
Yeah,
healing, so potent. The timing was crazy.
I know.
It
It
was
was wild.
wild.
It's funny for two psychic mediums. That's another thing that we'll always say. We're so open to, I want to say, the synchronicities of things and things that are so, I want to say, things that we can't see, on the bigger picture spiritually. And when
Hmm.
they unfold or just come into our awareness, it's
Hmm.
like we're still like, that's so crazy, but it's not. It's like, that's so crazy, but it's not. It's just wild and beautiful
I just could not
how
have orchestrated
things, yeah,
that.
I know that things can be
Yeah.
orchestrated. And I feel like that's another great podcast of talking about like synchronicities and how things unfold,
Yeah. And
and
trusting
stuff
that.
like that. Oh my gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So I think, I
crazy.
guess I just wanted to illustrate the way that soul
Yes.
contracts can interplay. And
Hmm.
also where like, me and my ex-husband had a very challenging soul contract, but
Yeah.
what I want to say is I feel like we just closed it out
It was so
with a lot
beautiful.
of healing.
It
So a
was
really
so
challenging soul
beautiful.
contract came all the way around to being something that was closed out with love, healing, and I think promoted actually a lot of like, um, again, healing, but like just peace. So,
I
like,
know when
just
you were
because it's a
sharing
fucked up
everything
soul
with
contract
me.
at first doesn't mean it's all that. Like, there was also a
Yeah.
lot of love there too. So, I think he's a great example of like, I know our contracts were made in love because we love each other,
Yeah.
right? And it was a tough life experience on some levels together. So, but at the end of the day, like you can feel the love of the contract there too.
Yeah, no, which I think is great. And I think that's really important to always come from a space of love. And even though I want to say, even for myself with my divorce, like I will always love him.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll always have that love for him. I don't want to be married to him, but I love
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
and I wish him well. But and I think that's just a good growth moment where you have sat in that moment of forgiveness and for yourself and for them and the situation or whatever the scenario is, and working through the healing of all of that. I think is really beautiful for your own personal growth and also for your soul contract.
I agree. I think we made major
Yeah.
progress in this one. But again, it's only
Hmm.
because we were able to come full circle, but I was very surprised that we were able to.
I
So
know.
that was, so I think it's, yeah, it comes in different.
It's really lovely, and I think we should talk about it sometime about
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
and more because there's some really good nuggets there to share with the listeners. So
Yeah, lots of
yeah.
learning, lots of learning.
Mm-hmm.
But with
Mm-hmm.
that, we'll spend our last few minutes on our
Talking
favorite segment.
titty bits.
Tidbit.
I said, oh yeah. I forgot we had like a little thing and I've already forgot it. See, this is where I'm like, I can't tell jokes.
Oh, well, we've done two others before. I didn't look one up. It's just always supposed to be a boob pun.
Yeah, it's a boob pun, but
Because these are nuggets of knowledge straight from our
I guess
hearts.
I'm not. Okay.
From
What,
our
what, what were we?
chest to
Well, go
your.
ahead. Ah, God.
a, a bobble of knowledge.
I don't know. We got
No, we're
nothing.
trying
But
too
anyway,
hard today.
I know we are trying
Please
too
leave
hard.
us
And
comments for some good boob puns because we love
yeah, we
them.
would love them. We would love them. You would
We
love them.
love them. I would love them.
You
Angelique
would
would
love
go,
them.
whatever, Deanna.
I'm still adjusting, but I'm getting more comfortable.
I love it. Clearly.
Clearly. All right. So today's titty bits. We want them to still listen to our podcast, so we're not like 5 hours of
Go for it.
chatting. I forget what we were going to talk about. Oh,
Today's
something energy, something.
wow. Thank you. Yeah. Energy
Uh,
something something's energy something was exactly it.
oh my
So
gosh.
we're talking gut feelings.
Gut feelings. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And just again, short and sweet, but we kind of were like, I feel like
Trusting the gut.
one of our most and like I think the thing that inhibits us from trusting our gut the most is it well, A, I guess learning to hear it. So like when you're having a gut feeling, how would you describe it?
If
Uh,
I want to say, it's interesting because you threw anxiety in there, which just totally threw a curveball for me because I'm an anxiety ridden person, and why I meditate on the daily.
yeah, our
But
biggest question was like, is it a gut feeling or is
is
it
it gut feeling
anxiety?
anxiety? Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a really good question to ask yourself. I mean, I want to say when I know I'm in alignment to something that I'm meant to do, or I feel really good about it. It just feels good. Like I don't have a pit in my stomach,
But
you
even that
know,
pit in your stomach
that pit
is
in the
also a
stomach.
gut feeling,
That's
no?
a gut feeling. Yes, but that is trusting your gut. I guess it's really about your choices in trusting your gut. Yes. So if you're feeling that pit in your stomach, it's clearly like I want to say a call to hit the pause
Mm-hmm.
to go, okay, like, why do I have this pit in my stomach? Is it my anxiety or is this really out of alignment for me and my
Yeah.
choices that will
Yeah.
bring me joy and happiness and love and all the things that make you want to skip through the streets? Not every decision is that, but if you're not feeling that, I would definitely say kind of sit with it for a minute and just, if you have to journal about it, and go, all right, is this just my anxiety? Is this me getting in my own head about it?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes that's it. We are just like, we're self doubting. We don't think we're worthy of something versus, or we're just too afraid to step into something. And then we get that pit. That's not really, that you have to sit with that and figure that out, right? Is that how you would say for you?
Yeah, I think I see. I still like, and again, we literally like our intuition is our business, and I still will sometimes find myself questioning, like, is that a gut feeling, or am I just like having an emotional reaction about something? And I think that's where I kind of had to give myself permission for like sometimes both will be speaking at the same time, and you have to give it some room to settle down. Because like if something's happening, you're like, that's really not feeling good, or I don't feel great about this, like you're going to have an emotional reaction about it too. So I think it's kind of like I find that if I can let the emotional aspect settle a little bit, I can kind of what I'm gonna say is whenever I feel like something that's like an intuitive truth, which is what I would call a gut feeling,
Yeah.
there's a to your point, there's like a calmness about it. And when we go up into our heads, like I would also say, like you gave me a phrase years ago that I kind of go to as well as like it's like the first drop in the bucket. It's
Yeah.
like, what's the first instinct you had about that thing? And usually, like, we might feel the gut feeling on it, and then we kind of take that up into our heads and we like spin it around, and then it
Yeah.
becomes anxiety because we weren't trusting or we're trying to solve the gut feeling
Mm-hmm.
that we almost forget that the gut feeling was happening independently before we kind of like made it a mind trap. And then like, but usually that first drop in the bucket is the gut feeling.
That's true. Yeah, no, I get that. I forgot I said that years ago. That's a
Oh, I
good
use
one.
it all the time.
That's a good one from Spirit. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, you know, also too, I think it's really important and where is like having a really good support system around you, really good friends that you trust that are gonna not so much sugarcoat, but will be a really good listener to when you can't get out of that
Hmm.
head. If you when you are hitting that pause button and you don't trust your gut right now, like I don't know whether this is my anxiety and I need someone who's going to give me a perspective that I know I trust and believe in. And it's not to say, you know, that you have to take an outside source as your defining. I think you and I, where we work really well, it's like, I need to know, am I in my head about this? I'm like, yeah, girl, you are,
Yeah. Does this
or
sound
like, no,
reasonable or am
you're,
I making up a story
yeah,
here?
I know, like,
Yeah.
because it's so easy to create stories in our heads about things. And I think it's
Mhm.
really wonderful to have a beautiful group of, or even one individual or two individuals in your inner circle that you can, you know, ask, like, is this in alignment or am
Yeah.
I just in my head about it? And have someone be honest with you and say, yeah, you're in your head, or like, no, this is totally reasonable. Like
Yeah.
what you're feeling is like in alignment. Like that feels really good to me. You know, when you and I were talking about other things like about our day or whatever, and we were saying, like, no, that feels really good to me energetically for you,
Yeah.
you know. And it's like, and then you have the option to sit with it and go, yeah, I'm kind of badass, you know. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
or like, oh, hell's no, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was creating stories.
Or it's like, oh, that's a big story. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
I think it's like it I think the secret ingredient is, I love that you brought up, and I completely forgot about that. I love that you brought up that first thing that pops in, but also like just again, I love using, because Spirit gave this to me. I use it a lot in my readings, is like hitting that pause button, taking a moment, like journaling it out if you have to, or thinking it through.
yeah.
If you have that pit, if it doesn't feel in alignment, but if it feels very natural and light, the light energetically, like if it's light and energetic and you're not even questioning it, then that's a like green light, baby.
Yeah. And then I do find if I'm like really like, okay, is this my anxiety or like what's actually true here? What's my body telling me? Not my emotional
Oh, the
self, but
body
what's
is
my
a
body telling
big,
me?
yeah, that's good
I'll
too.
do body
Yeah.
testing where you just kind of try and get neutral, take a couple deep breaths, and I just stand still and I just ask the question, like, is this in alignment for me? And if I fall forward, it's a yes. If I fall back, it's a no. So, like, I literally will just let my body kind of tell me, and I'll find that even when I want the answer to be the other thing, my body will always lean in the direction of what's true for me. So, that's
Yeah.
another way that I've kind of learned how to, like, almost kind of not override, but not let anxiety be like what I want to say is I don't let I try to use that as a tool so that the anxiety isn't louder or drowning out my gut feeling. Because I
Yeah.
find that you can't trick the body. Like it really will tell you the truth.
No, no. Well, I don't know. Sometimes I've had it's where like the big test that I've learned from my coach is say your name first. And if it goes back in the no, just ask to kind of redirect things, because sometimes like, because
Sometimes you're too emotionally
yeah,
upheavaled.
you
Yeah, yeah,
can
yeah.
get,
That's
you
why I
can
said you got
get
to get a little neutral.
you gotta get, yeah, you have to get into a space. It's the same thing with like if you use a pendulum or things like that, because they can be all manipulated
Or the
too. I think
tarot
it's
or whatever.
yeah, it all has things, but for the most part, I think that that's a really good test, is the body, you know, the body testing. And I was like, we're gonna stay in an hour, and it's like, like
No, we're
so,
not. There again, soul
yeah,
contracts was never going to fit in
I
under an
know. I
hour.
we tried so hard. No, we didn't. We didn't try hard.
We didn't try at all.
We're I'm so, such
Sorry.
rambling.
Sorry, not
I'm looking at
sorry.
our clocks, but
But if we wrap up now, we'll be fine.
okay. So yeah, so listen to all of that.
Listen to all of that. We're geniuses. Listen to all of it.
No, I am not.
No. Yes, you
But
are.
we're
But
having a lot of fun along the way.
yes, we are.
Um, so yeah, I hope this helps somebody.
Yeah. Well,
Somebody
and
out there in
just
the
putting it out
collective,
there.
in the
Yeah.
collective. Yeah.
Well, and
And
we would
please put some
love.
comments in, like we would
Mhm.
love to hear from you. And if you have any questions on it, we would be happy to make that part of our titty bits in the end, or even part of the next podcast,
Yeah.
and do a Q&A. I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, feel free to
Yeah.
email us or DM us or whatever, write a comment. We'll make an episode about it if it's enough to
Oh my
make a full
gosh.
segment
Yeah.
on. But yeah, definitely a titty bit. Like, what's a tip for this? Or how do you do
I
this? Like,
know.
I would love some, we would love some inspirational fodder and, whatever
I
is kind of
know.
coming up for you guys. We have a lot of fun, but I'm sure there's stuff that you guys are bringing up that would just increase that fun. So that'd
Yeah,
be
it's
awesome.
exciting. Exciting.
Yay.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. We're
Yeah,
very
thanks.
grateful.
Yep. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you. Have a good day, night,
Whenever.
middle of the day.
Have a have a good life.
Have a good have a good look. See you on the next podcast. Or hear
Bye.
you or whatever. Bye.
What? Okay, we clearly don't want to leave. We're those bad neighbors that
No, we
won't
don't
leave
want
the
to leave.
party.
We just love you guys so much and we want to talk. We want to talk to y'all all day.
We
Let's
won't
see
leave.
I'm in the South, y'all.
Y'all. Okay,
Y'all.
our social anxiety is kicking in. We've
I know. I know. Thank you again, everybody. Have a good, it's a night where I am. So I'm just gonna say have a good night.
All right, y'all. Catch you on the next episode.